Well, today I'm going to talk about something different. Before starting, I'm going to give you a background about why I chose this topic. I know you might have seen my thumbnail and my title, so you might be aware of what I'm going to speak on today. But I'm going to give you a background about why I chose this topic. I take a lot of sessions for communication skills and soft skills training in colleges and professionals with students and professionals. So every time I take these sessions, one question that comes up, some or the other person asks me this question: which company to choose if you get a letter from a startup or an MNC, which one to choose from, or which is better to start our professional life, or which company is better for our growth. So I get a lot of these questions every time, and I just thought of answering this question in this video. Well, I know, as student, I also made up my mind that I'm going to start with an MNC only, right, as most of us do. But at that time we don't have much knowledge, we don't have experience. With a very limited knowledge and experience, we feel that MNCs are always good and we don't want to get into a startup, right? So today I'm going to solve this myth, and I'm going to come up with a few things which I'm going to tell you with my experience. Like, I've worked with startups, I've worked with MNCs and a lot of other companies, so I have experience, I have that, I know the in and out of things about the culture, about the policies, about the salary structure, about the projects and everything. So I will give you an insight about how you can choose whether you should join a startup or an MNC. So guys, let's get started. On that note, welcome back to my channel. I'm your communications coach and a soft skill trainer by profession, and I'm here to help you out with all your communications problems and to help you speak English fluently and confidently. Guys, I've chosen this topic not only to tell you which company to choose, but these topics are very debatable. You can always have a conversation with others, right? So I'm going to give you some points. You can talk about those points with your friends and family and relatives and other colleagues probably, and try to get their views also, right? So this is a debatable topic. It's not just a topic which will help you to understand whether you should choose MNC or a startup. No, it's not just limited to that. These are conversational topics. You can always have a conversation with people on these topics, right? This will increase your knowledge and will help you to build your career better, in a better way. Okay, so let's get started. Now in this video, I'm going to talk about certain advantages of working with an MNC and startup, certain disadvantages of working with both, and how do you choose which one to join. Okay, so coming back to advantages. There are a lot of advantages of working with an MNC, and there are a lot of advantages working with a startup. Okay, so coming to the startups, the first and foremost advantage of working with a startup is you get a lot of exposure, right? So there's a lot of exposure in terms of projects, in terms of domain, in terms of the technical skills. So lots of exposure is there. You'll get to work on different projects, different domains, different skills, right? So this is an advantage. Wherein an MNC, you will get to work on a limited skill set on the same project, or a limited skill set, you have to work on different projects also, you have to work on the same skill set. It gets a little boring or monotonous and your knowledge will not increase, right, until you make a switch. Second one is job responsibilities. In a startup, of course, a limited number of people, the small teams will get a lot of job responsibilities, right? You might start leading a team at a very young or early stage. You might start talking to the client very early, in a startup. So these are the advantages of, getting into a startup initially, right? And wherein in an MNC, when you get started with an MNC, you will never have a client facing, you will never be put to the client, you will never get more job responsibilities or leading a team or anything of that sort. Probably for first 6 months or a year, you might not work on a project as well, right? But in a startup, you will start working from day one and you will start gaining knowledge. Okay, the third one is culture. Of course, it is a small company, the culture will be good. Okay, there will be no politics or very less politics, because your exposure is the same as the other person's exposure. Okay, your team lead knows what you are doing, your team lead knows what the other person is doing, your director probably might know what you are doing and other people are doing. Okay, it's a small team, it's a small group of people, so everybody knows each other, what people are doing. So there is no politics or very limited politics, so the culture will be good. But in an MNC, of course, you know the answer. There are lots of politics involved in an MNC and you have to survive. Next comes growth. In terms of growth also, startup has a lot of growth prospects, of course, money wise, monetary wise also, and profile wise also. So you will grow faster in a startup, or you'll get more responsibilities in a startup. But in an MNC, the growth is little slow, salary wise also, and in terms of designation also, it is little slow. Now, coming to the learnings, of course, if you get more exposure, you learn more. If you start early, you will learn more, right? It's the same with startup. The day one you get started, you are working on a project. Of course, by the end of a year, you will get to know a lot of things. And in comparison to an MNC, you will put for 6 months you will have trainings, another 6 months probably you will not do much. So a year is wasted. You will not learn much, right? If you start looking for a job after a year, probably you will not be able to, because you have very limited skill sets. You don't know much. You don't have much exposure. You don't have much learnings, right? Next is training. Now, in a startup, trainings are very limited, but it is more on-job training, which is actually required for you, right? On-job training is something which, when you are actually working on a project and learning, right, and getting trained. So that is how you get trained, right? And in an MNC, first 6 months you will get trained. You will have different trainings, but that necessarily not be like when you will put on a project, you will start, that will help you, that training will help you in that project. Okay, you will get a lot of trainings, but that not necessarily be helpful for your work, or it will not be an on-job training probably. Coming to the cultural or team bonding activities, a lot of team bonding and cultural activities in a startup. It's a small team, you get a lot of time, you can bond together, there are a lot of birthday celebrations, festival celebrations, outings, so they do, or team dinner, they do a lot of things, so team bonding is more. But in an MNC, since there are lots of employees, large number of teams, it's not possible for them to every now and then go out and hang out or go out with the team and have birthday party celebrations and other celebrations. They have limited celebrations which is there in the office, but the involvement or engagement is not that much, which compared to a startup. Now, coming to the most important thing, salary part. Now, startup salary is not great. The package will not be great in the beginning. Okay, but the appraisals and all, if you are a good employee, you're a hard-working person, if they see potential in you that you can grow and they can groom you, of course you will get a good hike every year. Like appraisals will be good. That I have seen, and I was involved in a lot of startups in the appraisals also. So I know how they evaluate people. But in an MNC, the package will be good initially, but then the growth in terms of salary, the increment is very less, like 5%, 2%. You might not even get anything at some point of time. So that is how it is, or probably maximum is 10%. So that is the increment. But here, even people get 100% hike. Trust me on this. So that is the advantage of working with a startup. Oh well, I'm not promoting a startup. It's you who has to decide what you want to do with your life or in your life. Coming to the second part of the video, the disadvantages of working with an MNC and a startup. So first point we will take up is salary. As I said, the salary package initially for a startup is not great. Probably, 8,000, 10,000, 15,000 or 20,000 maximum we'll get initially. That will be the package per month I'm talking about. But in an MNC, probably they will have a package of 4.5, 5, package of 4 initially. Okay. But then later on, it doesn't turn out to be a profitable thing. Whereas in a startup, probably you will get increment after a year, which might be good. So this is an advantage of a startup, like the package is less, but MNC, the increments are very less. Okay. And the salary structure. Yes, the salary structure is more complex in an MNC than a startup. Startup has simple salary structure, just have PF deductions, IT deduction and the basic deductions basically. But in an MNC, there are lots of deductions which you don't even know, right? So the net and gross are completely different. The second disadvantage is about less exposure. Now, since in a startup, there is a small team, okay, so you have limited people who are working there, and so that means you have a little less interaction with people. You have an interaction with a small group of people, not a large group of people. So it's a small team, so it will be a less interaction with limited people. You will have interaction, but in an MNC, it will be a large team, so you'll have a better exposure, like you will be having more interaction with different kind of people. Okay, so startup, there is no hierarchy. Of course, the director of the company or the CEO of the company, you will be able to talk to that person. You will be able to talk to your team lead. You will be able to talk to your project manager. But in an MNC, there is a hierarchy. You might not be able to talk to your project manager or your tower lead or your president or your vice president, right? People are not approachable there. So that is another disadvantage of working with a MNC. The disadvantage of working with a startup is they have limited projects. They don't put people on bench because they can't afford to. So if there is a recession, if there is, then projects are not, they don't get a new project, then you're probably, you have to think about it. If you're working on a project and it is going on for a long period of time, then you don't have to worry. But if the project is ending and there's no other project where you can be put to, okay, then you have to start thinking of changing. Okay, so you have to be very alert while you're working with a startup. They have projects, well and good. If it is a long-term project, that's fine. Okay, and anyways, you will be there for 2 years. 2 to 3 years maximum you will be in an MNC. You just learn things, you just get the skills, and then you can walk out and get a good job, better prospects, and a good MNC you can choose. But with an MNC, there are lots of projects. But they put people on bench. So that is also another disadvantage, and you have to find your own project. And if you don't get a project in a stipulated period of time, then you have to serve the notice period. Now coming to the policies, startup has simple policies. Okay, but MNCs have a lot of complex policies. The HRs are not approachable. If you have any problem with anything, you have to write emails and probably 10 emails, 100 emails, and then you'll get a response, right? So policies of a startup and MNC are very different. It's very difficult to approach people or get your problem solved in an MNC. While startups, there are lots of other policy faults, like probably startups have limited policies because they can't afford more of employee welfare and all, and the training budget is also less. So in terms of policies, startups are very simple. They don't expect much. Okay, but MNCs, they have a lot of policies, but it's very confusing and it takes a lot of time to get clarity on things. Now the final question is which one to choose, whether to choose a startup or an MNC. Now I'll give you certain parameters which you can think about and decide, whether you want to work with an MNC or a startup. Okay, I've already spoken about my points, like on those parameters I've already spoken. You can just watch my video and think about it. Or as I told, this is a debatable topic. You can discuss with a lot of your colleagues or friends or relatives who work with an MNC or a startup, and you can just discuss and understand which company to choose. So I'm going to give you some certain parameters which you can talk about or discuss about or get information about, and then choose which one is a better fit for you. The first one is salary or the salary structure. Which one? If you want a good salary, a handsome salary, of course, if that is your concern, then of course you can go for an MNC, but the growth is limited there. Okay. If you want to work, get good experience, get good exposure, and get hands-on on your technical skills, join a startup. You'll get more exposure, get to work on more technical skills and domains, and you'll gain better knowledge and understanding. Coming to the growth, if you work with a startup, your growth will be, if you are a hardworking guy, if you are good in grasping things and learning things, definitely you have a good prospects there, and your salary will also increase and your designation will also increase. Coming to the policies, again, if you're looking for good policies, simple policies, join a startup. If you are looking for more policies, wider, employee welfare activities and stuffs, join an MNC. Culture, if you want to work in a good culture where there's less politics, no politics, join a startup. If you're a person who can withstand politics and want to get an exposure into how company politics is, please join an MNC. You'll get a hang of it. And you'll know the survival tricks as well. So that is another advantage. The projects. Startups have limited projects, of course, and MNCs have a large number of projects. So if you are on bench, you can find another project in the same company. But if you are on bench in a startup, you will not be put on bench, you'll ask to leave. Or if you're put on bench, it will be very difficult to find a new project for you, right? So job security is more in a MNC than a startup, that's for sure. But if you're mindful about it, if you're alert about it, you can survive in both the places. Coming to the last part is work-life balance. Definitely startup has a lot of responsibilities, a lot of growth, lot of work to work on. So probably you will be busy. But in an MNC, at times, you might be very busy, but there will be time when you will be relaxed as well. So you'll get both work-life balance more in an MNC than a startup. But if you want to learn more and grow in your career, of course, there is startup. And if you want to relax, like in the middle of your career, you have kids, you have family at home, and you want to give some time, then that is the best place. You have a good package there. You have work-life balance, life is set. So you have to decide your priorities, and you have to decide what is your priority in life at that point of time, right? You want to grow in your career, you want to have a work-life balance, you want to have a better job security. So a lot of things comes into play. So that is why I thought of discussing these points with you, so that tomorrow if you get an offer from a startup and an MNC, it will be easier for you to make up your mind and choose the best option for you. Good luck. Bye-bye.